Ruslan.
If you guys don't know, I love highlighting other amazing Christian creators. I'm not trying to build a cult of personality here on this channel. Ultimately, I'm after truth. I'm after empowering people to walk with Jesus long, live a holy, set apart lifestyle, and thrive on this side of eternity. And I gotta send a big shout out to Dr. Sean McDowell, who put out a fire interview today that I am going to be reacting to. You really should watch the entire interview about this concept of Christians deconverting, deconstructing, then deconverting. And basically what we're finding, according to the studies that the PhD who was on his channel, his name is John Marriott, I think that's how you say it, found, is that for every one person that's coming to Jesus, 4 people are leaving the faith. He wrote his dissertation on this, a book, and they go over this book. I'm only going to react to a couple of clips, but I need you guys to go watch the full interview. I'm going to be having Dr. Sean McDowell on soon. He's at Biola, which is right up the street, so I kind of want to do it in person, but we might just have to have it virtually because this brother's been dropping heat. All right, here we go.
Describe how, again, I appreciate this. You say each person has a unique deconversion story. We can't put people in a box, but there's also a common path, so to speak, that people journey down in their deconversion. You have 7 steps. You don't have to walk through all 7, but what are some of the big keys that people commonly walk through in this process? Big steps.
Yeah, the first would be something like a context that everyone comes out of. Oftentimes, not always, but often, the context that people come out of is one that's very rigid, one that's inflexible, one that has high demands, one that elevates a lot of doctrines to the level of a non-essential.
One that's very rigid, inflexible, and elevates a lot of doctrines to the areas of non-essentials. I feel like this is what I've been saying on this channel for the last 6 to 8 months consistently, is when we take non-essentials and we elevate them to the top of essentials, and then we create a black and white fundamentalist, all or nothing binary view of the entire world. That is setting somebody up for deconversion. Now, for every one person coming to faith, according to the studies they looked at in this book, there's 4 people leaving the faith. Okay, I'm gonna go to some passages. Okay, I'm gonna go to Matthew chapter 11. Jesus says, "For John came neither eating nor drinking." This is him responding to the critique of the Pharisees. He says, "For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say he has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they say, look, a glutton and a wine bibber or a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners." And then Jesus says, "But wisdom is proven right by her children. Wisdom is justified by her children." Meaning that there's so many folks that want to split hairs over this doctrine, that doctrine. You can't do this. You got to do this, right? But at the end of the day, we're looking at why people are deconverting, and the number one reason it seems why they're deconverting is a very hard, high demand, low flexibility, black and white. Let's elevate all non-essentials to the areas of essentials, and let's put a yoke on people that we can't really live, which then creates a hypocrisy and creates a disconnect from what actually following Jesus on this side of eternity means. I've been screaming this from the mountaintops for I don't know how long, and people continue saying, "No, it's not fundamentalism. No, it's not legalism." Fam, the studies are in. Okay? I don't know what else we need to discuss. Wisdom will be proven right by our children. Bad fruit, bad root. Okay, let's keep watching.
Also, that might say someone, maybe a little anti-intellectual. Don't go off to university or college because they'll just ruin your mind there. And also very exclusive, feeling like...
Very exclusive. Oh, sound familiar? Watch this. Feeling like what? Feeling like...
everyone else outside of your group, outside of the Christian church, is evil, is worldly, is bad, it will be a terrible influence on you. And that doesn't even necessarily have to be, if you're coming from an evangelical, fundamentalist, conservative background, then it's not just people outside the church. It certainly probably would be people who are Catholics. It would be people maybe in other denominations that don't have the same views that you would hold, to the point where it's almost as though you feel as though you're the only group that's out there that really has a handle on what the Bible teaches. So the context.
It's almost as if you're the only group out there that has a proper handle of what the Bible teaches. Does this sound familiar, anybody? Does this sound like the majority of Christianity today with 40,000 different denominations that all take different secondary doctrines or opinions or convictions and elevates them to the place of essentials? Does this sound like anything we're familiar with? Does this sound like a lot of the Christian YouTube space? A lot of the stuff that gets popping is the what? It's the us versus them. We are the only ones that got all the answers. It's us. It's our camp. Your camp is wrong. Our camp is right. What are we talking about? Oh, we're talking about some secondary doctrine. We're talking about Calvinism. We're talking about tongues. We're talking about this, right? Hey, the PhD said it. The doctor said it. I didn't say it. The doc, go leave Sean McDowell and John Marriott, PhD, an angry message. Don't leave it here. They said it. I didn't say it.
Context is really important. Very rigid. Second, there would be some kind of a crisis.
Very rigid. Okay. Let's keep going. We're gonna go deeper and deeper. Very rigid, very strict. Let's keep going. Okay. 27. This is 27 minutes in.
Number of people who left their faith from a more fundamentalist
He just goes
background.
out and flats out. He like, look, Sean like is easing in there, and then he just flat out asks him. I'll replay the question for you guys. I love this interview, man. Oh gosh. I love this interview. But the same stuff I've been saying, I'm just so happy that smarter people are saying it. I'm so happy that it's not just me saying it. There's other people that are smarter than me with degrees that are saying this, that have done studies to prove freaking research and dissertation that are saying this. Listen to what Sean says. He just flat out asks. Listen to what he's saying.
Number of people who left their faith from a more fundamentalist background. Because in my experience and research, I consistently find that, but I haven't done the objective data that you did. Is there a correlation or connection there?
Oh, yeah. I think it's one of the reasons why so many people who leave their faith speak of being set free.
Do the majority of people who leave their faith, according to the research, leave from a more fundamentalist background? What is his answer? Yeah. That's why the majority of them saying that they're been set free. Wait a minute, isn't Jesus supposed to set us free? Oh, maybe it's not the same Jesus.
I think that that there is, Jesus says, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, for it's easy, and you'll find rest for your souls." And so many of the people who have left the faith, for whatever reason, describe a background that was far from being restful or light. In fact, it was very burdensome. It was cumbersome. It was like a millstone around their neck, because there were so many rules and regulations that they had to follow. I came out of a background somewhat similar to this. So my grandmother, who's probably the greatest influence in my life for the Lord, was a wonderful woman with about a 5th grade education. So very simple, but a great faith. And I grew up thinking that, you should never dance, that you should never ever go to a movie theater, never.
Sound like some of y'all in my comment section. You can't do this dance, can't watch these movies, can't do this, can't do that.
Play cards, never have anything to do with alcohol, never be around people who smoke.
Can't drink alcohol, can't do this, can't do that.
Cigarettes. All of these things
can't even be around people who smoke cigarettes.
Worldly activities. And there were all kinds of rules that she felt like she needed to follow. And this is very similar to the people who come out of, who identify as former Christians. A good number of them, I would say the majority of them that I've spoken with, or stories I've read, come from these kinds of backgrounds.
Do we keep going? The vast majority of them, I keep saying, how do you avoid deconstruction? You construct it right the first time. How do you avoid having a faith crisis? You build your faith on Jesus and not on religion and not on legalism. Here's the solution. Here it is right here, okay? Avoid setting people up for a crisis of faith. I don't care how long you've been following
Avoid
Jesus. Let me pause that. Don't care how long you've been following Jesus. Here's where we're going to land. I don't want anyone to have to go through the process of deconversion. I don't want anyone to go through a process of faith. Here's the solution. He's going to give us the game right now. He's going to give us how do we avoid this, okay? How do we avoid this? I'm going to give you guys a nice illustration at the end of this to glue this all together. But here it is. Here's the application point. Listen. If you don't want to go down the same rabbit hole, if you don't want to be on fire for Jesus one day and then swing in the opposite pendulum, okay? Here it is. Listen. Here it is. Here's the solution.
It's real helpful. You said to avoid setting people up for crises of faith, you suggest, quote, we avoid instilling a stifling and restrictive faith in believers by placing on them no greater burden than necessary for
PhD
them to be Christians.
No burden necessary than that what requires them to be Christian.
What do you mean by not placing a greater burden on people necessary to be Christians?
Right. Well, this is where people will start to turn the channel off if I say the wrong thing. In the book of Acts, you have the First Jerusalem Council, where there is this argument that's going on between the believers who are saying, look, we have these Gentiles who are now followers of Jesus, and we think that we should be making them follow all of the Jewish kosher laws. And then you have another sect saying, no, we shouldn't impose on them any burden that's greater than what's required. And the argument that carries the day is the argument by James, who says, look, we don't need to have these folks believe and hold on to extra Jewish kosher laws. And I'm trying to say something sort of analogous to that, which would be this, is that there is this historical Christian orthodoxy that goes back to the first century.
There is this historical Christian orthodoxy that goes back to the first century.
That is expounded in the text of the scripture, but is actually really laid out and distilled in some of the early creeds. And
it's in the scriptures, 1 Corinthians chapter 5, Ephesians chapter 2, John chapter 3. It's in the scriptures, right? Titus chapter 3. But there's also these creeds, okay? Talks about the Apostle Creed, the Nicene Creed.
Those creeds, they say that here are the boundary markers of what it means to be a Christian. If you go past these and you have different views than these, then you are non-orthodox. You are not in the right belief anymore. But those beliefs are you could distill them all to less than half of a page.
So, there has historically been, these are the closed-handed essentials of the faith. These are the open-handed non-essentials of the faith. If we know what the closed-handed essentials of the faith are, and we focus on the closed-handed essentials of the faith, which for extra credit, homework for you guys, go look up the Nicene Creed, go look up the Apostles' Creed. It's all very basic stuff. If we know what the essentials are and we focus on the essentials and we focus on pressing into Jesus, and this isn't about watering down sin, this is saying, what does historical Christianity look like? And we press into that, the rest of it will fall into place. All the secondary, the convictions, all that other stuff. The issue that we have is we have this the open-handed doctrines, and we keep placing the open-handed doctrine, your conviction on tongues, your convictions on predestination, your convictions on fill in a blank, alcohol, secular music, and we say, if you don't agree with us on these, you're out. And now we put them here. This is fundamentalism. This is legalism. By the way, there are some things that are fundamental. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the essential historical orthodox doctrines. Okay, we don't water those down. So we have these essential doctrines. We don't compromise on those. Okay, we do not compromise on those. The other ones, hey, we can have dialogue. We could explore different ideas. So, I'm gonna tell you guys a quick story. I have my brother Joseph Solomon on the channel. Shout out to Joseph Solomon, friend of the channel. Joseph Solomon was really one of the first people to kind of help set my channel into motion in terms of like me being open to talk about faith, because I looked at the space of where faith was and I was just like, I don't want to talk about this stuff. Like, this stuff is so combative and so toxic. And he shared this story about him going through his own kind of like deconstruction process. If you guys don't know who Joseph Solomon is, super dope artist, YouTuber, Christian. And he said, when he goes on these long trips, when he goes on these super long trips, and he's traveled everywhere, he's traveled to all over parts of Africa, he's traveled everywhere. He says when he goes on these super long trips, he says, if I want to travel long, he says, I can't travel with a bunch of baggage and luggage. He says, if I want to travel long, I have to travel light. If I want to travel long, I have to travel light. And so he says, in my following Jesus, he said, I had to put down some of the baggage that I had and just keep my theology light. What is my theology? It's these essential, historical, orthodox beliefs that we've all held throughout history. Okay? And if you want to travel long, hold on to those. Hold on to those. Hold on to those tight. Everything else, travel light. So if you want to go, I want to walk another 30, 40, 50, 60 years with Jesus, right? So what I'm not going to do is be 1,000-point Calvinist. What I'm not going to, right? You guys following along? So when we travel, if you want to travel long, travel light. Don't put a bunch of other stuff on top of your faith. Don't put a bunch of other things as absolutes, because what tends to happen is if someone pulls on a thread of one of those secondary doctrines or convictions that you've made absolutes, and they pull on that thread, your whole faith goes kapoof. And then you start this process of deconstruction and then deconversion. Okay, so if you want to travel long, travel light. Know what those essentials are. For extra credit homework, go look up the Nicene Creed and go look up the Apostles' Creed and sit with 1 Corinthians chapter 15. All the essentials of what we're supposed to believe are there. And it's more or less what we've believed historically. So hopefully this is helpful. If you have any angry comments, send it to Sean McDowell or John Mayer. Go subscribe to Sean's channel. Watch this full interview. It's bananas. All right? Love you guys.
King's Dream Entertainment. Ruslan.
Hey, thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. If you found it valuable, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. You can check out one of the other videos related to this that'll be over here. Now, I gotta tell you about a free training I have for anyone that is an entrepreneur, a creative, an artist, but maybe you are unsure on how to find your voice, how to find your niche. I have a free training in the description of this video. Check it out. Once again, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you on the next video.